Welcome back, Red Letter Disciple. We love that you are listening. My name is Zach Zender, and co-host and friend Pastor Chris Johnson will join us in just a moment. And our mission at this podcast is to challenge you to be the greatest disciple that you can be. And if you're a pastor, to challenge those in your church to be that as well. Because when we live up to our greatest potential, which is great disciples, the world really can and will change. So we welcome onto the show today an awesome guy named Jonathan Anderson, who's the coach of the Lake Mary Little League team that just, believe it or not, won the World Series champions. Like, of the world. It's the best team in the world. Crazy. So we're going to relive that moment when their Florida team won it all, and the speech that Jonathan gave that went viral in the dugout that he didn't even know. He forgot his mic was on, and he was just giving him some real great Jesus. And we're going to talk about the journey of coaching and the opportunities that it gives to raise up young, in his case, young men, great disciples. And plus, we're going to learn the truth about where kids sports is already, like where it's headed, and how churches and pastors can be even more prepared for how to run their churches, knowing that kids sports is not slowing down. What can we do? A really fun conversation, and we can't have it without our partner, which is Children's Hope Chest. They're our season 8 sponsor, and if you haven't checked out the great work that they do, I want to challenge you to do that. One of the ways that you can do that is go right now to hopechest.org/Lutheran. Hopechest.org/Lutheran. You can do that whether you're Lutheran or not, but that's where they have some upcoming vision trips to places like Guatemala, Uganda, and Ethiopia. Your church, Lake Mary beat, I think it was China in the World Series. And it just reminds us of we're a global, a global people, and your church is meant to reach people globally as well. And we'd love to introduce you to Hope Chest and the powerful model of ministry that they do overseas. And if you haven't connected yet, again, go to hopechest.org/Lutheran. There you can get on a vision trip and see in action what they do. We've personally, my family, seen their work in Uganda, and now we actually work with them through our church in Guatemala and have sponsored some kids and really get to see a powerful two-way transformation where we're not only impacting the lives in Los Amates, Guatemala, but those in Los Amates are impacting the lives in our church. One of those lives that they're impacting is my teenage son, Nathan. Nathan got to go on a mission trip to Guatemala. And I don't know that there's many things in life that are greater faith accelerators than mission trips. And so their model is to obviously empower that community. It's over a long haul, so it's a helping without hurting model. But what happens through it all is through these multiple mission trip opportunities that your church has with your village is people get to step up into the greatest disciple that they can be when they go to another culture and learn and grow and support and use their talents. It's an awesome, awesome opportunity. So again, check it out at hopechest.org/Lutheran. We've got trips this summer to Guatemala, Uganda, Ethiopia, and they're a great partner, and we thank them for being with us on season 8. If you haven't yet, subscribe or follow to the Red Letter Disciple. That would be awesome. And rate and review it. Let us know what you like, what you want to hear about, how it's made a difference in your life. That means the world to us when we see those ratings and reviews. Without further ado, let's get to today's episode with Jonathan Anderson. Let's do this. Chris, tell us what we got today on Red Letter Disciple.
I got to tell you, I am so excited about this next guest. This next guest got myself and my wife to watch baseball again. I haven't watched baseball for so long.
The pitch clock is amazing, I'll have to say.
They don't have that in Little League. But Jonathan Anderson is our interview today. And if you don't recognize that name, you will after I give you this bio. He was the head coach of the 2024 Little League World Series champions, my very own Lake Mary All-Stars of Lake Mary, Florida. They won the World Series for the first time for the state of Florida, brought it back home. And, the cool thing is that he gave this speech to his team. That we're going to talk about that went viral. The game itself was watched at its peak by over 5 million people. And
it was like exciting. The world, right?
The world. This is it. The world champions.
There's a lot of kids sports and a lot of tournaments and stuff.
No,
but I think this is it.
This is
holy smokes.
Yeah, isn't it Williamsport or
Williamsburg?
Well, I don't know. We'll ask him.
We'll
ask him. 25,000 people were at the title game to watch this. Let's welcome Coach Jonathan Anderson to the Red Letter Disciple.
Hey,
There he
how
is.
you guys doing?
Good,
How you guys
buddy.
doing today?
How are you, champion? You doing good?
Yeah, it's it's not as big as what it was, but I'm still living the dream.
You guys were the heroes of our hometown, making it on every news channel, doing something that nobody has ever done in the state of Florida, winning in dramatic fashion for people that didn't see the game, winning in the second extra inning with a bunt. Was that your son who laid down the bunt?
No, my son was actually he was on deck.
Oh, so he was like, "Oh man, let me in, coach. Let me in."
Right. He thought it was going to be his opportunity to win the thing.
Yeah.
But like you said, there was something else. There was something else in store, and it was Hunter's opportunity, and he bunted, and a great team made a small mistake in a big moment, and we capitalized.
And
I think a bunt is maybe the most humble way to win. What humility from Hunter. That's incredible.
So I want to dive into something real quick. The speech that you gave that went so viral, that so many people talked about. You can find it online, but I've got it right here. And I think this is just amazing. And people have broken down this speech. I don't know if there are people that are breaking it down and saying everything that you did right. A lot of times I mean, not to this level, but we've both coached before, and you're in that high tense situation and you tell the kids, okay, don't freak out. He didn't do any of that. He didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
This is what he said, boys. And this is this at the beginning of extra innings, or when
This
did you
this is in between it's us coming up the bat in the 6th inning.
Okay.
So we're the home team. We're losing 1-0.
1-0.
And late in the game, and to give context, right? These games are normally 7 innings at that point.
6
innings. Okay, so bottom of the last inning. Okay, there you go.
And that's and he's playing Chinese Taipei, which is known for their world titles.
Yeah.
And this is what coach says. Boys, this inning, one of the first days that we got here, I came down here. A man prayed over me, okay? He saw my dad later. He said, it's already been written. We're already the champs. The Lord put it in his book. We're just going to finish the story right here, right now. So stay calm, stay composed, stay within yourself. But understand, it's already been written. It's already ours. We just have to finish it here. We just have to play this inning. You understand? And as all the kids on national TV say, yes, sir. That is amazing. I mean, how old are these kids, coach?
11 and 12.
Amazing. And what I loved about the Lake Mary team is that you have all kinds of backgrounds on this team. You have all different ethnicities on this team, and they were all so respectful. And then when they won games, they did it humbly. And you see all these superstars now, they're doing end zone dances and stuff this. Was the best coach team that I've ever seen. He goes, here we go. And this is how he finished it. It's our summer. It's our game. We're going to come up on top. Are we ready? The players all yell, yes, sir. Here we go. Go get them.
I'm ready now. Let's
I know,
go.
man.
Right.
That should be the speech. That's the speech before Braveheart charges in. That's how had you been thinking about that speech the whole game? Or how did that just come up improvisationally?
Essentially, yes, it did. Innings prior, I was kind of telling them, I was setting a tone maybe to that, but I was telling them more, hey, the train is running down the tracks, boys. We're gonna break through. We're gonna score a run because Chinese Taipei scored in the first,
right?
So we were chasing one the whole game, and we're getting runners on base, and they're just getting out of it. And I'm saying, listen, we're gonna break through, boys. The train's moving. They're not gonna be able to stop it. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. And then you get to that last inning, and my son's leading off the inning, and essentially the story ended last year on my son striking out. So I wanted to try to calm everything and just have him do his job. And that was what came to me was that right there. And our coaches, Kyle and I, talked about it on Saturday night after the Texas game of just, it's our summer. It's ours. It's ours. And then in that moment, improvisation, I remember, me having that conversation with my dad and him meeting, Jeff in the stands and his friend telling them that we prayed over him and it's in the book. The Lord put it in his book already. They're going to win this thing. I know it. I believe it. So when two random people that don't really know you believe that we're going to win the whole thing. Let's do this. Let's do this, boy. Come on.
So let's talk about that for a second. Last season, how close were you to making the World Series tournament?
One game.
Oh my gosh. And who did you play?
Nolensville, Tennessee.
And if you would have won that, then you would have gone to the series. And talk
2 years in a row. So yeah. So if anybody doesn't know, if anybody doesn't understand how Little League works, so we went into the regional tournament, which 8 states represent the Southeast region, and we went undefeated. And the tournament is double elimination up until the championship game.
Oh my goodness. I did not know that.
Right.
So you lost 2 games in the title game, which is just absolutely heartbreaking when you go,
just one game. Just one
Well,
time.
it's okay.
Single in the championship.
I see. In the championship game, it's single elimination.
Right. So you have families and friends that are like, you should have had 2 opportunities, but that's not the rules, right?
Right.
We get the advantage because our pitchers get rest, our players get rest.
Yeah.
It came into,
yeah.
Right. It came into a 1-game slugfest, and Nolensville had a pitcher that he wasn't going to get beat. He was just that good. He was that good. He took everything, he put everything on his shoulders, and he beat us. And it is what it is. But
did that happen the year before too? You said?
It happened in 23, I guess you'd say.
Okay, I got you. Yeah.
Right. So we knocked on the door, and then we blasted through the door and won the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Talk about that for a second, though, as a coach, like making that all the months of preparation that you spent, and then, you're so close. And now what do you say to the kids after something like that?
It's the same kids, right? Each year. Pretty much.
Well, the 12-year-olds, if you're 12, you're done.
Yeah.
So last year we had 8 12s, 4 11s.
Oh, wow. So you lost a lot of kids.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So
but that like you said, that after that loss, you've got 12-year-old boys balling.
Mm-hmm.
They put, like you said, they put in all that work over the summer. We were right there, and it just gets taken from you, and it hurts. It hurts because your baseball with your community, with your friends, is almost essentially over, and now you're moving on to the next chapter of your life, a bigger baseball field, high school.
Mm-hmm.
You may not collectively play with all these boys again ever in your life.
Yeah.
So it hurts a little bit, and you just try to tell them, hey man, we did our best. We tried our best. We went after it. We just ran into something. We ran into a buzzsaw, someone better than you. And that happens in baseball. That's life.
Right.
Sometimes it doesn't go your way, and you don't know why, but it is what it is. So just, take that pain, use that pain in the gym or in your training to get better, to where when this opportunity arises again, that you can overcome it.
Yeah. And then you had, we have a mutual friend, Lee Minion, who's your neighbor. And he,
is he on that Despicable Me movie?
No, wrong.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. Inspired. He inspired the movie.
Yeah. Just checking.
And I
Some
know,
weird stuff happening in Florida. That's all I'm saying.
I know a little bit of this story, but he after that loss, he had a conversation with you, and then he offered to do some kind of like boot camp for the team. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you go from this mentality where you're kind of mourning the loss of this season, but now you're contemplating, I've still got a good core coming back, and we have the potential, as you said, to drive the train down the tracks. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I get home after that losing to Nolensville, and I'm talking obviously to your friends, to your family, because they all want to know how the experience was. And I'm talking to Lee about the experience, and I'm talking about how it's, you're up there for 8 days. The boys are in, so the way they do it, the boys are in hotels with the coaches away from their family.
Mm.
And they're in 3, so they give 3 rooms for the boys. We have 12 players, so 4 boys in a room. And I kind of explained to Leroy that the controlling them on off days was kind of tough, and I'm the coach, I'm not their parent. How do I discipline them? I could tell them to stop, but I can only check into the room so many times, and I don't have a key to the room. I can't. You don't really want to do that. I can't be barging in on boys. Who knows what they're, So Lee was like, you know what? Here's, let's try something here. Let's try to more mental preparedness, mental toughness, discipline. Can I come out and do some training sessions, do some boot camps, so that these boys are mentally prepared for this battle away from their parents in this Southeast regional atmosphere or Williamsport atmosphere. And I was like, you know what? That's a great idea, man. Let's do this.
Wow, that's cool. And he's ex-military, so he's the guy to do it. And maybe that's part of the reason where everybody was like, "Yes, sir, yes, sir." It was so good.
And Lee, Lee does. I know he works in the police force, so he trains people there. Like he's a leader. He's a leader wherever he goes. So it was easy to have him do that. And he's kind of soft spoken. He's not like crazy hard on people. So I knew it would work. And he came out. He actually, I think he was on vacation in Maine, and he immediately got home from a flight and drove straight to the fields to do this for us, because I told him, I don't really want you to do this throughout the practice before states or anything of that nature. Leroy, I want you to do this right after states, before we go to regionals, to let these kids understand that there is another level to this and they need to be prepared for it. So, there was a Friday night, and he was like, all right, I'll be in town. And he literally rushed over from the airport and right into a boot camp with these boys.
So as a coach, you're not only just shaping the athlete's skills. We know that. You're working with young men, and you're trying to help develop them into being the man that God's called them to be. Yes. So it's so much about character as well. How do you integrate your values and beliefs into the way that you mentor and kind of lead the team?
Yeah, I mean, that was all of it. That was all of it. And like you said, being men or young men of Christ, but also just good young men in general. And I was kind of tell them, the way you perform here, the way you work here, if you don't step it up, or if you don't do your best, this is kind of like the job force too. Understand that, boys, that everything you're doing is showing your employer, showing your boss, if that's what you want to do. If you want to run your own business and you make a mistake, well, now your business is gonna fail a little bit. So understand that everything you're doing, it matters. And if you do make a mistake, well, learn from the mistake and try not to do it again. Because if you keep continuing doing the same mistake, then it's going to be bad for you, especially in the job field, especially in college or anywhere that you go. It is okay to fail. It is okay to mess up, but learn from it to not repeat it. Because if you continuously repeat it, there will be problems in your life later on. You can't function that way.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan, I'd love to kind of go back to like before you even got to the Little League World Series. Like what made you want to be a coach and kind of help? Obviously, I know your son's on the team, but other boys as well. What was the drive for being a coach, and what have you learned throughout the process?
So my father always coached me pretty much. My father played baseball, played a lot of sports, but he coached me in almost every sport I played, all of it to a certain extent. He never coached my all-star teams. He never did anything like that, but he was always teaching me and always coaching me, and our teams were always very successful. So once I had boys, and my dream was to have at least a boy. I wanted my first child to be a boy. After that, it could, I was going to have 3 kids in my family. They could be 2 girls. It didn't matter. I needed 1 boy. I just needed 1 boy. I ended up with 3.
There you go. Yeah.
So I had to coach them. That's just what I was taught. That that could be my calling, right? I love coaching, teaching the youth, helping them prepare into being young men and growing in the sport that they love, or just in life in general. That's a lot of things. That's a lot of things that you talk about with them. Is you have to have a tough mentality in everything that you do. And I know it's hard. I know you're a young kid. I know you have friends. Your friends are going to tell you, hey, that's not cool. That's not cool to run everywhere, or that's not cool to try really hard on your homework, or to try to get hundreds on tests. But you gotta block them out and do your best in everything that you do, because if you do, you will be successful in this life, and that's just the way it is.
It's cool. And so many people take kids sports so serious, and a lot of people, a lot of friends that I have are in that sort of age bracket where they've got boys or girls, and they're coaching, and it's really a fabulous, I think, opportunity to pour into the lives of youth. And so as far as I know, like, you guys, Little League World Series, like, this is not a job, right? But it very much it feels like the demands of it to get to that level are, and so you are, I believe, giving of your time for this. Is that correct?
Yes, Little League is a volunteer. It's
So walk me through the
it's a
balance.
non-for-profit.
How do you do that, though? Because I would think it just consumes, especially, so much of your time, especially in, like, when it ramps up. I would think, like, that's all you can do. And so how do you do that? And that's an amazing, I think, generosity of time that you're giving to make this happen. And so walk me through a little bit of how that's even possible.
Yeah, it's hard, right? It's tough on your family, it's tough on your significant other. It can be tough. It can be tough because there are men that do not have children that do it. So it can be tough on your family, your other siblings if they don't play the sport, but you still love it and you're coaching it. But yeah, when you get going, especially for all stars, there's a lot of work that needs to be put in. And if you make this run, your little leagues probably all of August.
Yeah.
So every day in August, I was at a hotel in regionals, or then I was in Williamsport. There was no days in between. So it was, you have to have an employer that is very, very giving, very, very, very understanding of what is happening for these young men. And they trust, they have to trust me to still be able to do my work while coaching, or do my work when I get back. So that, yeah, you have to have a generous employer, or you have to own your own company, and you have to have, a family that is willing to just give you away.
Well,
to,
you had
to 12 young boys.
you had a good
Yeah.
excuse. I mean, people could just watch you on TV, like,
Yes.
he wasn't lying. He was
Yeah, it wasn't
actually
like
there.
he called out sick and then he's
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So how do you, it's such a competitive, kids sports, I'm feeling, is just getting more and more competitive. And so as a coach, how do you balance the pressure of competition, but also, like, the teachings of Christ that are baked into probably who you are and what you're wanting of your kids? Humility, grace, patience, sometimes things that are harder to, I'd say, live out if you're wanting to drive that competitive spirit, which I think you are wanting to do that at the same time.
Yes.
So walk me through that balance of, like, the competition, healthy, unhealthy, and how you bring in those really great characteristics that Christ teaches us.
Well, it's interesting because we interviewed a guy yesterday, and he was talking about, like, we were even asking it, like, as Zach's very, you don't know Zach. Zach's uber competitive. I'm very competitive, but then you do have to balance that with being a Christian too. And
Yeah.
and I love, but anyway, I'll let you answer, Coach. But it can be extreme at times, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I mean, right. If you played sports growing up, or, I mean, I guess you don't have to, right? Anything that you can do is competitive. So we all have a competitive fire in us, right? So how do you, and then when you get older, how do you release that? How do you release it? Do you play pickup basketball? Do you play pickleball? Is it golf? What do you do to release that competitiveness? Or maybe you just do it in your life, in jobs, and climb a corporate ladder. Or maybe you guys are looking to be the best podcast in the world. We all have it in us, and we all want to release it. And right, it gets competitive in sports. I think some people, some parents don't know how to handle it, and they release their competitiveness in this realm. And sometimes they're in the stands being uberly competitive, and it can come off, improper. But I don't know, man.
I'm sure that's never happened to your team. Like, you've
Right,
never,
or me. I've never done that.
right.
Right. So, like, which I had struggles with that with my first son when he was starting and he was 8. I probably was in, probably people had opinions that I was crazy, that I was too much, because I would come in and it would be I would be so serious about it and intense about it just because I when I first stepped into Lake Mary Little League, I felt that we could do something of this nature, of a Little League World Series. So that was just something that just was my goal. It was my goal. So from my oldest son being 6 years old, this was it. This was my job. It was my calling, and I was gonna make this happen, and I was gonna take every step that in my opinion to make it happen. So I was pushing the kids to be their best even at 6 to 8, and trying to elevate their game the best that I can. So that, I mean, that's what I was doing, and it's a tough thing to do, and like you said, when you get then once they get older and you've pushed them throughout the years, then you back off of the intensity and the pushing them to be baseball players,
Mm,
and then you have to switch over to the mental aspect of this game and
mm,
how it's a very hard game and how you fail. And then that's like going back to what you said, you have to bring in the teachings of Christ, of being humble, of understanding that we as humans, we're going to come up short, right? We are going to fail. And how do you respond to the failure? How do you bounce back from that so that you can help your team? It could be the next pitch, it could be the next play. If you're the pitcher, obviously. But that's the part where you have to start to get them mentally understanding that you have people with you. You have a community of a team of players that are rallying behind you, and you're okay. And
mhm.
if you do fail, help your teammate out. So if
Yeah.
you would have watched our team, especially in the regionals, when a kid failed, when a kid struck out, when a kid got thrown out at first, he would run back around, pick up his bat, and then he would whisper in the next batter's ear and tell him what they saw. If the fastball's doing this, the curveball's doing this, the umpire's zone is this. So they were all engaged together with a common goal to try to win, to try to get to Williamsport. And I think if you would have watched, you just saw that. So you know, it came across great.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love the communication between the team as well. Um, so I'm just wondering, like, I coached, not to your level, but I coached middle school flag football for like 8 seasons. And the reason I kind of stopped doing it wasn't because of the kids. The parents are so much harder to navigate than the kids. The kids are easy. And I can't
Mhm.
imagine getting to your level and being thrust on the national scene. And then all of a sudden, like NBC's throwing a mic in your face, and you handled it very well. But I'm just thinking, like, navigating everything that you had to navigate from the new media, that everybody wants to have an interview and talk with you, navigating the parents, maybe they're ticked off their kid didn't get to play. I mean, that happens. And then
Yep.
you also have the tough dynamic of having your own kid on the team. And even though he was amazing, but then you've got people, I mean, maybe judging you because you're playing your kid more, things like that. And ultimately, you're doing all of this as a volunteer.
Right.
Like, it's
Yes.
not
Right.
like you're making six figures doing this.
Right.
This is talk about navigating all of that as a human being.
Yeah. It's that can be tough, right? You have that leaking in. You have the dad ball aspect of things. Everyone says it's dad ball, right? It doesn't matter if your kid is talented or not. And sometimes, but that's what makes it. If your kid is talented, it makes it a lot easier, right? That you can
Yeah.
you can build around your team. And my son did lead off, and my son did play a little bit of shortstop. So ultimate dad ball here, right? Ultimate. But like you said, as long as he does his job and he shows up, then you're okay and you can still win. And that's how you can rally the other players and the parents around you, as long as they can trust in you and believe that you're doing what's right for the team and what's right for their child. They're usually fine. And I've never had much pushback from parents yet
You shouldn't.
on on playing time, on position.
Yeah.
Nothing heavy. Nothing like no real argument. They could ask about it and we can have the conversation. Most of my conversations sometimes are with lineups. I've
Mm,
had I've had parents throughout the time ask about that. And I can just, I come back with, I put a lot of time into this.
yeah.
Don't think that I just throw this around and
Yeah.
this is favoritism. I am an engineer by trade. That's what I graduated with. I was a mechanical engineer. I have a professional engineering license. I think about this a lot. Like the structure of my lineup is a big deal. It's huge. So if I do have your son at the bottom, it's not because he's not good. It's because maybe I have three different lineups in my order. I have 1 through 4, 1 through 5. Number 6 starts a totally new lineup. The lineup then ends at 9 or 10, and then there's a third lineup that starts, and you're there to roll this thing back over to the top, and you're going to score runs. You all have a role. You all have a part in this. Just trust in me. Do your part, and we will be successful. That's how it has to be. And that's the biggest thing is to accept your role on whatever team you're on, and do it to the best of your ability, and you will be recognized for that, and great things will come to you.
It's such a
That's
great
good.
lesson too for life. Nobody that is a competitive guy probably wants to be in the ninth spot, but there's going to be times where you might be in the ninth spot. And baseball is interesting to me, Zach, because like you can fail at the bat 70% of the time
Right.
and still be an incredibly successful baseball player. So the mental aspect that coach brings up is like, so important. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. And I think it's probably a little easier for them to trust you when you just show them the Little League World Series plaque. So
does anybody else
graciously
have
we're
one of
given.
these?
So-
Okay, nobody.
Right. There's like 74 of them, 75 of them, and we're the only one in Florida for now.
There you go. You've got one of those. So hey, trust me. Look at my plaque. It works.
Yeah.
I'd love to know like how coaching has made you a greater disciple of Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, just to be able to, like we all feel like we have callings, right? The biggest person in the church would be the pastor, and everyone wants to, maybe you dream to be that guy, and then you fall down, and it's like, you know what, not fall down, but then maybe it's youth pastor, maybe it's not in that setting, maybe it's I need to be out with the kids at a baseball field, or on a basketball court, or wherever it may be. Maybe it's just working at a coffee shop, whatever it is, right? But you got to use that. You use it, and you teach anyone that comes in contact with you, like you said, the right way to live your life, the right way to do things. You throw the teachings of the Bible and Christ in there. You try to do your best to have these kids understand it, and hopefully, choose the right path and do the right things, because that's all you want. You only get you only get these people in your lives for a small window of time, and you hope that you influence them in some way, in a positive way. That's what you really want to do, right? You want them to remember you, and remember the great things that you did and how you helped mold their life, and you want them to be better than you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a youth pastor for a long, long time before I took over this latest church. And I remember thinking to myself, like, we get them when they're a freshman. And then finally, by the time they're a senior, like, okay, they can probably go in the world and be a really good Christ loving person. And then you've got to start all over. you're even, you know what I mean? Like, you've had them, you've molded them, you've taught them, and now they're going, and you've got a whole new batch of kids that you've got to do that with.
Yeah.
Right. And for you, they go off to college, so it's
Right.
not. I mean, you can kind of track them, but they're all over the country now.
Yeah.
For me, I let them go, and now they're in the high school, and it's, hey,
Yeah.
come to my high school games, come see me. Hey, I got a tryout this week, and you try to, so you get to tell them and give them some words of wisdom, and let them know, be a maniac out there, run around,
Yeah.
run everywhere, make the coach be it have your friends think that you're crazy, and when they tell you you're crazy, don't stop, do it even more, right? Like, and they're going to tell you to not do that. Don't run here, don't run there, that's not cool, don't do that, man. This is a tryout. There's a lot of kids out there, there's a lot of kids that play baseball, there's a lot of kids trying out, and how are you going to make yourself be known?
Yeah.
And I try to tell all those kids that if you're doing something, if you're running around everywhere, that coach he's gonna put a star. He's not, and if you and another kid have the same tryout, I'm going to tell you that that coach will have a conversation about your hustle. And maybe you don't make the team this time, but I'm telling you, they will remember your hustle. And then come next tryout, they're going to look at you again and see where your growth is because they want you. Because everybody wants that hustle player.
Yeah.
Everybody wants that kid because he's going to push you. He's going to push your other players to do it as well.
It's good. I think hustle is such an important thing, not just in sports, but in life, in church, and business, and whatever you're pursuing. That hustle is really important. All right, I want to kind of talk about, let's just call it the engine that is kids sports. As a pastor, I talk with lots of pastors, and in my field, I feel like kids sports gets demonized because it's competitive against, if you will, the church and what the church is trying to do, especially with think worship services on Sundays specifically. Felt like in past years, decades, Sundays and maybe even Wednesday nights were reserved for church activities. And now if you want to get involved in kids sports, if you want your kid to be thriving in that, you've got to kind of sacrifice, it feels like, all of that for them to have a fair shake. And I think a lot of parents are wanting that for their kids and maybe even living out their fantasies through their kids. And so I want to talk about the engine that is kids sports, and not only the dangers that you've seen, but I want to flip the conversation. Let's go to dangers first, but then I want to flip the conversation to talk about, if this is a reality, how can we use it or pivot to see this as opportunity for the gospel and for Jesus and for even the church in the future, if that makes sense. And so if you go there with me, I want to first talk about the dangers and kind of what you see, because in my world, there's nothing bigger in baseball than the Little League World Series. So you're in it, you've seen it, you're living in it. So you've got a great perspective, I think, to help a lot of parents and pastors kind of wrestle with sports.
Right. And when it comes to national exposure and ESPN, there's nothing bigger than the Little League World Series. But there's the other bigger engine behind it. That's travel baseball. That's Perfect Game, USSSA, right? These travel organizations, and their tournaments are on Saturday and Sunday. And there's no avoiding it. And you're obviously not going to be able to go to church. That just is what it is. And it's not going to stop. It's going to get bigger. It's not going to stop, and everyone does it. I mean, me as a Little League coach, as a Little League president, I'm dealing with travel ball every day, and travel ball coaches saying they don't want their kids to play Little League on their team, and that's frustrating. So the travel ball aspect of this is huge, and they play on Sundays. So as youth pastors, or a previous youth pastor, those kids don't come to you anymore, right? Once they pick this sport, and I'm just speaking of the baseball world, the basketball is the same way. Basketball does the same thing. Soccer does the same thing, to where they're just getting the youth out of the church, essentially, especially on Sundays. So how you combat it is, as the coach, you're going to have to put that in that youth's mind, right? You're going to have a little, maybe. And a lot of them do that, right? You're down on one knee and you're praying pregame, or maybe both teams come together postgame and they have a little prayer. But that's your little community service, your community and your little church service that you can have in that moment on that day. But if you play sports, like you said, if you play competitive sports, Sundays are gone.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not. It doesn't feel like it's going backwards. Like it's only going to keep escalating, right? And so I heard you say that's a danger, and obviously it's not only danger, it's reality. It's already kind of gone over the hill. We're not coming back from it, and so.
And I remember.
Yeah,
I remember when I was young. Sundays were for church. You would skip a game. How dare you schedule this on a Sunday? I'm not coming. That's my day. That's my family day. That's my rest day. I'm not sending my son out there. How dare you schedule this game? But it's not. Even me, even my family, we got tested on it, and I thought I had a philosophy and a process, but it consumes you. It overwhelms you, and you don't know what to do, and then you fall in line.
So what are the opportunities then? I'm speaking as a pastor, and I still want to reach families like yours, and the families that are on your team. And if Sunday morning is not an option anymore, for a season because they're, for better or for worse, prioritizing a sport. How can churches use kids sport as an engine for growth, for discipleship? What can we do to kind of reach those communities or pour into those kids and maybe even coaches that maybe we are doing or maybe we're not doing? What would be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, oh, I don't know, right? That's hard. How do I mean, do you link in with the organizations and see if you can get yourself out there? But then, you know, most organizations don't want. It's a scary thing, right? If you have a pastor out there wanting to have a service out at their sports organization, and parents, the parents that believe a different way, then they're going to get upset, and I don't know. I mean,
I'm
like
wondering.
you just have to teach, like you said, you have to teach the the men or the young men coming up to where then they drop their nuggets on the kids that they're coaching,
Mhm.
Yeah.
essentially. How else do you do it? I mean, and obviously there's a lot of churches that have services on different days. It's not exclusive to Sunday anymore. So I mean,
Right.
maybe it's you got to get a service Sunday night for the sports kids, or a Saturday night, or a Friday night before they send their weekend to sports.
Yeah.
Maybe it's I don't know. If but that would be the key, right? You have to get the youth. You
Yeah.
have to get the youth because the youth
Yeah.
is the future. So how do you get the youth into the church
Well, and
as
I've
much as
I've seen
possible?
I've seen some teams too. Like I saw like the Lake Mary football team. They have a pastor that like is on the sidelines during the game and like available to pray with them. And maybe it's something like once a week the pastor comes out at the end and just encourages and does a quick prayer or something like that too. I don't know. Just thinking. But I think with bigger churches, you certainly have midweek services. You've got the Sunday night services. It's just I think the tricky part on the part of the pastor is that at one point, like I remember growing up, Wednesday night, you could not do any activity. That was like a church night,
Yeah.
right? And then Sunday was forbidden, just like you said, coach. But now there really is no forbidden time. And I understand the pull too, because I have a lot of my kids that like go to my church they're trying to be like they're trying to get D1 scholarships in soccer and in football and all these things. And if you're gonna be at that level, it's a 7-day, 365 experience. You're training, it's not like back in the day when we played. Like I could play basketball, football, and baseball and didn't focus on anything,
Yeah.
Now it's just if you're gonna do it, it's such an intense process.
So what do you do? Obviously,
But
coach, I
right,
know
but right,
it's important to you. So what do you do to kind of keep faith in Christ at the forefront if you're, so involved and your family's so involved in this? Like, how are you
but-
doing that personally?
and I'm just off of what Chris was saying. I'm just thinking about what he said. Right, it's if you want to go D1, it's intense, right, and you need to be training 24/7. But as the pastor, couldn't you come back to that child and say, "Where is your training with Christ?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's that? Are you giving him
Right.
an hour a day?
Yeah.
Are you giving him Well, how are you training that your mind? How are you preparing yourself for for what's going to be, how you're going to get attacked and what's going to be thrown at you, and how do you handle that? Are you doing that? And I know that I struggle with that, right? I'm not doing that all the time, but that I guess that's where you need to start implementing that too into it. Like you have to train for that. That needs to be trained as well
Mhm.
all the time. And just like in life, like the world tells you that that's not cool, that's why would you do that, right? You just that's just so it's hard. And I know I'm more of the quiet guy at that. If
I've seen your
I'll
interviews.
right,
Stop.
right. But I'm saying when it comes to
Oh,
my walk with Christ,
I got you. I got you.
with my journey, like I've in life, I've started to become more vocal. But when Julie Foudy interviewed me post game and said that we heard that speech, I was I was a little taken off guard because that was in my mind that was a moment with my kids.
Yeah.
I totally forgot that I had a microphone on me. I totally forgot that they could use it. I it was me preparing my kids. That was my moment with them,
Yeah.
and I didn't think that they would use it. And your ESPN, Disney, ABC, like That, again, they use what they want. They're gonna use what they want. They'll turn the mic on, they'll turn the mic off.
Mhm.
I didn't, in my head, I'm thinking maybe that wouldn't be something they'd want to put on
Yeah,
there. And
right.
it wouldn't be something they'd want to talk about in an interview post.
Yeah. So what
So
have we
probably
learned
for a
from that?
second, but you
Yeah.
use it. You got to go. You use it. But yes, but me, obviously now that I've gotten older, I've gotten more comfortable
Yeah.
in leading the prayer and doing those things. But
We've
you know,
we've been doing this
life,
we've been doing this a long time, and we've never had a gospel speech go to 5 million people. Like, that's pretty incredible. So, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. And when I mean, the letters from people across the country that have sent them to Lake Mary Little League, and the people when I was at the parades of just that speech, what you did for those boys, what you did, what the world got to hear, what the world got to see. So yeah, I mean,
And I think
thankful, grateful.
there's
Yeah.
probably a lot underneath that I think is hitting it a little at what I'm trying to get at too, is like when I suppose we see Christ or uh, representatives of his in kids sports, like it warms, I think, a lot of people's hearts to
Yeah.
remind, okay, cool, there's something there, because we're recognizing that we're losing out, if you will, on the consistent habits of the past. And so what I'm hearing you say is like we need to bring that in, and in the scope of training, like we've got to add maybe a spiritual element, especially as coaches, but I would also think as parents with their kids too, of reminding them of like kind of a 360-degree training, that it's physical, it's mental, it's emotional, but there's also some spiritual training.
Yes.
If you really want to be the greatest you can be, not just in your sport, but as a in your case, a man that you're growing up. And so
Yeah.
I think that's fabulous. Did you get a lot of, what did you learn through the speech and the reactions? Because I know there's been a lot of support, but I would also imagine there's been a lot of naysayers too, of like, Jesus doesn't deserve to be in the Little League World Series final inning.
Right. So I'm the president of Lake Mary Little League. So there were a handful of people that felt that they needed to get up from their TV, get to their computer, find the email address of someone from, Lake Mary Little League, and send an email in and say that was, I can't remember the words what they were using, but it was just, you cannot do that in a youth environment. That was so uncalled for. He needs to be removed. Like, there was a lot of that stuff of just like, that is something that you cannot be doing in the youth and influencing them in that way. And and I'm a handful. We're talking 3 to 5, but those
Yeah.
people, what I did got them that irritate, whatever, that they needed to go get an email and send it in to let someone of Lake Mary Little League know that this is not acceptable.
Did you say you brought it up to the president?
I just let it go. I don't want to get engaged in that, but
I gotcha.
Yeah, and I think it's crazy. Yeah, we live in
right?
a world of religious tolerance, and yet, I think sometimes Christians don't always get even though we're technically the majority of believers in our nation, I think sometimes we don't get the fair shake in the media or the national, public.
And then you look on the internet and you read people saying, like you said, God and Jesus aren't a part of baseball games. That's not what he's doing. He's not deciding that. But that's not what this was, right? He's not deciding a sporting event, essentially. What I'm saying, what I felt is, it was written in the book, and it's not the sporting event or who won or lost a sporting event that God and Jesus cared about. It was what that is going to propel them essentially after, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
My kids won the game, and that was written in the book, and that's the story that they get to tell, and they get to go on and they get to take their path. But the other team, maybe God needed that loss for them to propel them in wherever they needed to go after in life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not the event. We're not praying for winning the event, essentially, but there are two things needed to be done, right? For everyone.
And there's such highs and lows with sports that I think are, really teachable moments, both the highs and the lows. And I suppose I want to land the plane there with, winning the World Series. And I would imagine you're on a high, there's a parade, there's several days of celebration. Um, if I'm 12 years old and I won that, I don't know that I would have handled it well coming down off the mountain.
You wouldn't.
And so I kind of want to know from not just the kids, but also from your perspective, like, what's it like coming down the mountaintop experience of winning that? And how do you make that a teachable moment if, with kids that are so young and moldable?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, like these kids I had for the whole summer, and they're good kids. They're humble. They're nice. They're genuine. They care. Like you saw, and that's the other part, right? The story was written, but and then we win, and then you see how the kids acted after they won with the team, right? That's all a part of this whole entire bigger picture that these people don't understand, right? It's not just about the moment. It's not about winning or losing. That's not what this is. It's the teachable moments. It's everything that happens. And they get to see that these kids in that moment of winning a game said, like you said, we've got months to celebrate us.
Yeah.
What we need to do is take care of this opposing team that was in this fight with us, because we're all a community. We're all baseball players. We're all together. We're all brothers. We were all there for 2.5 weeks together. Now we all can't speak the same languages, but still we're all in a connection of loving one game. And that's the first thing that those kids decided to do. They didn't need to jump on each other and hug each other and say, we finally did it. No, it's let's take care of these boys. Let's make sure that they're okay. Let's let them know that, yeah, we ended up being the one on top, but boy, did you make it hard for us. And you guys are great players as well. And
that was one of the coolest moments when they won off the bunt and the pitcher from Chinese Taipei just overthrew the first baseman. Like, I think
there was nobody at first.
Yeah,
the first base. So the first baseman, right? The first baseman came up.
That's right.
I don't think he knew that was going to happen, or he thought the second baseman would be there, and he just threw.
But then he collapses like right there because he realized what he had done wrong. And if I'm 11 years old, I'm running to the trophy. I'm like piling on people, but that's not what Lake Mary did. Look at it on the YouTube video. They had their players just surrounded this kid who was like on the ground crying, and they're like picking him up, like encouraging him. I've never seen that in youth sports in my entire life. It was,
and that was a big deal too. That was big. Like that, I got letters about that as well, about the speech and the sportsmanship were the two biggest things.
Which, I mean, gosh, you can't do any better as a coach. Like, how many coaches have ever got a letter from people about their sportsmanship? That's amazing.
I think it's fabulous, and I think bringing this back to discipleship, which I don't think we teach often enough. I think we teach oftentimes that like the truest test of our character comes through adversity, but I would also say it as much as comes through accomplishment. Like who you are when you're on top, I think is sometimes more challenging, if you will, than when you're at the bottom. And that's what's really neat, is in that moment where they are on top of the world, they practiced incredible sportsmanship, and the truest test of their character, and I would say probably of your coaching, came through in that moment. And that's a really cool thing for the world to see. And so kudos to you on that, man. Hey, Coach, we ask all of our guests to challenge our listeners. If there is a discipleship podcast, we want to challenge everyone listening to be a greater disciple. So if all the listeners could do one thing this week to be a greater disciple of Jesus, what would you challenge them to do?
Ooh. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind, and obviously I'm with the youth, but what Chris was saying, like we all train yourself with the Lord. Get in the book, train yourself, learn, prepare yourself for the obstacles that are thrown at you on a day-to-day basis. You got to be in it. You got to read it.
I love it.
And you got to talk to them, right? You got to talk.
Yeah.
You got to have a real relationship.
So I'm hearing read and talk, right? Is that what you're saying? Read and talk. I love that. Listeners, if you take that on, a hashtag Red Letter Disciple, if you are reading the Bible, if you are talking with God. And I know that for many of us that sounds like basics, and it is, but that's part of the spiritual training, is like we get to be in a real relationship with the God of the universe. And we do that by reading the book, by talking with him, by connecting with him. And so if you do that, hashtag Red Letter Disciple, we'd love to know. We'd love to encourage you along, or email us hello@redletterchallenge.com. If you need help, by the way, in what you're reading or how to pray, we've got resources at Red Letter Living to help you. We have Bible reading plans that we partner with YouVersion, the Bible app, that thousands of people go through every year. We've also got a 21 days of prayer challenge that we made up. If you're like, I don't know how to pray, we've got that at prayingchallenge.com. And so if you need any help at all, we would love to be an asset for you there. All right, Chris, you ready?
Yeah.
You're going to close this up with our coach?
Yeah.
What you got for him?
Coach, thank you so much. Amazing. You brought life to our little city. The parade I lived 3 blocks from where the parade was held. That was so fun. The entire city rallied around you. So you're going to do it again this year, right?
I was just about to say, we're not done. I'm going to do it for the next 5 years. I'm going to try to sit there, and we're going to push every year.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait to watch you guys play again. It's amazing. So every at the end of every podcast, we create a special game for all of our guests. And I have to imagine that you're a big MLB fan.
Yeah. Philadelphia Phillies.
All right. So
Phillies. Okay.
Nobody has won our game this season. So you might be the first person. We have selected 5 MLB superstars, and we've got their nickname. Can you identify the MLB star based on their popular nickname? Here we go. Question number 1. We're going to start easy. The Big Hurt.
The Big Hurt, Frank Thomas.
That's it.
Yeah.
1 for 1. Look at he just scoffed at it. That was so easy. Look at him, Coach. Yeah. All right. Okay, big unit.
Big unit would be Randy Johnson.
Okay. Yeah. This is good. All right. Ooh, this one. Now we're gonna get a little tougher. Okay. Rock. The Rock.
The Rock. That would be Tim Raines.
Whoa. Okay.
Wow.
3 for 3.
Wow. Hey. Sanford native.
That's right. That's in our backyard, Lake Mary, Sanford, Orlando area. Okay. The Bringer of Rain.
The Bringer of Rain.
Yeah.
Woo-wee.
All right, Coach, as you're thinking about that, let me give you a pre-game speech or a middle game speech right now.
I'm phoning a friend.
The book. You've got this. You were made for this.
Oh, man. The Bringer of Rain.
This one. Yeah.
Nothing's coming to me. The Bringer of Rain.
Let me give you a hint. I think this is the same guy. I believe he holds the record for home runs in the home run derby and just went wild one year with home runs. He's got a really cool testimony, actually, too.
Does he?
Yeah. So when you're doing that, that's sending me to Hamilton, Josh.
His first name is Josh, but it's not Hamilton.
I'm thinking of the wrong guy then.
Oh, no. You thought of the wrong guy?
I thought of Josh.
It is Josh. The first name is Josh. The last name is Donaldson. Josh Donaldson.
Yeah, okay, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You're right.
Okay. Him. Oh,
I got you the first name, though.
When it comes to the youth, I don't like Josh Thompson because he's got a comment that says, if a coach tells you to hit ground balls, tell him, shut up.
Gotcha. All right. And finally, to go 4 for 5, an impressive 800 batting percentage. Yeah. This would be the Machine, or La Machina. The Machine.
The Machine to me is Albert Pujols.
That's it.
There
4
you go.
for 5. That's an amazing run right there.
Josh Donaldson. That's a crazy one. I didn't even know he had a nickname.
I didn't either. And obviously I had my Joshes mixed up. He played a lot for Donaldson played for the Blue Jays. Is that right?
Yeah. He's bounced around now, but yeah.
Anyway. All right. I got to
Twins. But were you giving me Josh Hamilton?
I was, because I thought that's who it was, but my last name was off.
They were good. They were good hints, because he did go off in the home run derby, and he does have a great story. So
he does actually. He told it on that website. I Am Second is one of the most powerful stories. So Really cool. All right, Coach. Hey, if people want to connect with you, where can they connect or follow along with the incredible coaching that you're doing for Lake Mary?
Yeah, You got Lake Mary. You can go to Lake Mary Little League on Facebook. I've got a Facebook. Obviously, Jonathan Anderson. I have a picture of me holding the the southeast little thing. Just
I think it's
yeah.
crazy that you spent the entire summer and that all the money that you raised. One time I'm driving down like downtown Lake Mary and I see Coach Jonathan and the boys outside. Like, I don't know, they were raising money or washing cars, trying to get to, the Little League World Series. And then you have this incredible journey, the first team to win in the state of Florida, and show us what you get. Show the people what you get.
All right, hold on.
A 12-foot trophy. Like something. Look at this. This is
you're watching on YouTube.
That's it, on YouTube. There it is.
You get to see a plaque that looks like it was bought at the Dollar General.
That is not discounting your work, but my goodness.
No. But again, like you got, like you said, the Sportsmanship Award. This is given to us for sportsmanship.
That looks impressive.
That's impressive. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, we got to go. I think the big award winner was Bob Costas. He won a legacy award, and Larry Fitzgerald. So we were rubbing elbows with some very important athletes. But yeah, you get the Little League World Series plaque. You get a banner. You get a cloth banner. It says Little League World Series, and
all right,
off you go.
The Little League World Series leadership is listening. I want to put a word in to say that y'all got to buy a better trophy. There's got to be some serious hardware for all the work involved. And Coach didn't say it; I said it.
Yeah.
Like that's my
Let's
opinion.
not get Coach in any trouble here.
No, he didn't say it. I said it.
I mean, you get the EXPN exposure. Everyone had that.
Yeah, you get the parade at Disney. That's fine.
Disney took care of us after. Universal took care of us. Discovery Cove.
Oh, fun.
Obviously, did you guys hear what the governor did for us?
No, what?
Yeah, the governor brought us up. We had a little dinner, and he says that he gets stuff done. So all of the kids got 2 years paid college tuition.
Holy cow!
All right, so that's
better than any trophy, man.
Yeah,
and and DeSantis played. I think it was in the '90s. He went to the League World Series in the '90s. So his first thing was, who hit a home run up there? He goes, that's you may never play at a stage that big ever in your career, right? Unless you go to the College World Series or you play in Major League Baseball, you're never going to be playing in front of a crowd like that anymore.
There's Major League games that don't have 25,000 seats sold. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. Coach, we love what you're doing. Keep it up.
Yep.
I can't wait to see what happens this year. What a run. Thank you for your time. And thanks for being a part of it, man.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that bless you.
Blessings. What an amazing story. What a pinnacle, mountaintop experience to win the Little League World Series. I love the humility that Jonathan Anderson has and the amazing way that he carries himself and his team in the success. And that really is a testament, maybe more so than anything else, of his coaching, of the sportsmanship, and just the amazing young men that he is raising. So well done, Coach Anderson. Thank you for coming on to the show today. If you want to connect with him or anything he talked about, or with our sponsor, Children's Hope Chest, and you want to get in one of those vision trips this summer, and you need to be in the mission field and in the global game, get in the game, but do it with a partner that you can trust. And we really believe Hope Chest is that for you. So you can check them out and Coach Jonathan Anderson at our show notes for today's episode 95 at redletterpodcast.com. Next week, we've got Chad Bird coming on to the podcast. And what I love about Chad is he is an Old Testament scholar. And I really focus on discipleship so much in, obviously, the life and words of Jesus. And Chad is an Old Testament guy that says we can learn a lot about discipleship from the Old Testament. And so we talk a lot of theology, and we talk about how we can learn about discipleship in the Old Testament. We're going to learn it from a messed up dude named Jacob, of all people. And plus I ask him, I've always wondered, and I do get asked as a pastor a lot, how do we know which Old Testament laws or rules, if any, still apply to us today? I loved his answer that he gave. You're going to love it too. So don't miss it. Next week on the Red Letter Disciple, subscribe and follow so that next Tuesday it'll show up. And if you see it there and you got an extra minute or two with your fingers and thumbs to type a little bit, you hit 5 stars and type a little review, that means a lot. We'll see you back next week.